By midlife, many of us will be tested by a traumatic life event, which I call a personal plane crash. These jolts can propel us or they can derail us, taking us back to square one. These midlife jolts can create a lifetime of purpose, creating new relationships and new careers and new worldviews and a clarity of your mission on earth. That jolt came to me on January 15th, 2009, when I was one of the last passengers off and survived the plane crash known as the Miracle on the Hudson. Over the next few minutes, I want to share with you this phenomenon called PTGS, post-traumatic growth syndrome, and how you can actually grow from a traumatic life event and your life becomes transformed. It was a very hard hit. When we hit the water, I went back in my seat and up my seat just like that. When I came back up, I looked out the window, and I saw light. So I knew I had a shot, but I wasn't out, because the water came in extremely rapidly, and immediately water was anywhere from ankle knee to waist deep. And my first thought was, get to the aisle, get up, and get out. But when I got to the aisle, something happened that changed that day for me, but probably changed the entire direction of that day. My mom kicked into my head. My mom passed away in 1997, but there was something she would tell me when I was a child that popped into my head, and it was, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. And the right thing for me was, you take care of other people first. See, I grew up playing sports and athletics and Boy Scouts, and I was always around a group of guys, and we always had each other's backs. So I made my way to the back of the plane to see if anybody needed help. And then when I got behind everybody, we started making our way out. Now, based on that impact, because it was a really hard hit, some of those bins had broken open and luggage has flown out. So every time you took a step, you ran into something, and at that point you could see whether it's somebody's body or a piece of luggage. But all the further I could get up was 10F. First window on the right that I could see light, and I started making my way out. Well, as I started making my way out, it was an amazing sight. There was no room on that boat for me. There was no room on that wing for me, but it was an amazing sight. People were already being rescued. I don't know who said this, and I give them 100% of the credit when they said that the captain and first officer got everybody down that day, and the crew and passengers got everybody out, but the real heroes of the day were the first responders. And the first of the first responders was the New York waterways. They were there about 2 minutes after this plane crashed. And I was in the plane for about 6 or 7 minutes, waist deep in 36-degree water. And all of a sudden I felt the plane shift. And all of a sudden I felt a shift. The first thing across my mind was the movie Titanic. I don't remember that movie. When that boat tipped up, it sucked everything down with it. And my thought was, man, do not be sucked down in a plane. You're this close to getting out of here. So I thank my mom and my dad. Because if they hadn't given me swimming lessons when I was a child, I may never be able to get off this plane. So as soon as I felt it, I jumped in and started swimming to the closest boat that I could find. It'd have to be the end of that wing. Now, anybody here seen the movie Sully? A few people, I hope? Cool. If you saw the movie Sully, you saw the ferry they had, and they had a plastic ladder they rolled down. That's the kind of ferry that I went to. It had a plastic ladder. So when I got there, I got my backside sort of closer, and they're yelling, climb, climb, climb. I yelled up, can't. Then my mom started talking to me again. Because the word my mom hated most in life was the word can't. See, if you grew up in our house, if you said, I can't to my mom, she said, if you can't do it, you're going to do it. I figured out that my mother's worldview was, if you can't, you must. So I got one arm up. I felt somebody grab it. Got the other arm up. I felt somebody grab it. To this day, I do not know who these two gentlemen are. But they pulled me on one of those ferries and threw me on it. And that's when my life started to change. Back when I was first in business, I did something back then in Canley. I didn't know whether it was smart or not, but it turned out to be one of the smartest things I ever did. I found that mentor. That person with that 50 or 60 years of experience, and you can compress their decades of experience down to your days of execution. And my first mentor's name was Bill. Now, when I first met Bill, Bill wore a flannel shirt and drove a pickup truck. That's all I knew about Bill. But as I got to know Bill, I found out that Bill owned 80 movie theaters through North and South Carolina. Bill was a multimillionaire. Bill was the Sam Walton of Charlotte. And he took me under his wing. And one day I called Bill. I said, Bill, hey, how does somebody become a leader? And he gave me one of those bits of wisdom like only these guys and gals can do. He said, if you want to be anything in your life, put yourself around the peer group that you want to be like. They will elevate you to that standard. Yeah, you got to remember, I'm pretty young right now. I'm like, how can I fast track this thing, man? Let's go. I said, I can sign up for a business seminar in San Diego, California. I paid $4,000 to sign up for this business seminar. My wife thought I was nuts. We were having our first child. She said, you're going to spend $4,000 to go to some seminar and jump up and down? I said, yeah. So I went to this seminar in San Diego, California. Now I got there, I looked at the agenda, and one of the things on this agenda was a thing called a mission statement. Now candidly, way back then, no one knew what a mission statement was, but you know what? I paid $4,000. I'm all in. So I got there, we got to that date, it was October 4th, 1994, and I write this. I, Dave Sanderson, see, hear, feel, and know the purpose of my life is to be happy, realizing I can accomplish anything I desire and have faith in my Creator, inspiring others to be the same. And I put it down. And the gentleman who was leading the seminar said, don't look at it for 6 to 9 months, just immerse yourself in it, right? I'm like, all right, I paid $4,000, I'm all in, I'm going to do exactly what this guy says. But 6 to 9 months later, I'm looking at him, I'm like, I'm a loser. I'm not doing any of this. And I can't tell my wife. But all of a sudden, January 15, 2009 comes, and that mission's realized. The Sunday after the plane crash, I went to my church. Now that Sunday, everybody wanted to talk to me. But there was one guy who really wanted to talk to me. The guy was in charge of men's breakfast. And he came up to me and said, Dave, will you speak at men's breakfast next Sunday? I said, no problem, man. 50 old guys eating pancakes? Got it. Walk in the park. Do it all day. I didn't know they invited half of Charlotte. 500-600 people show up, and they run out of pancakes. Now I have hungry, angry Methodist on my hands. Anybody here a Methodist, right? If you're a Methodist, you better have food. It's not like the Baptists or Episcopalians or Presbyterians. You can run out of food all day long, but if you're a Methodist, you say you have food, you better have food. So now I've got a bunch of hungry, angry Methodists on my hands. So I go behind a curtain just like this one. And I go behind the curtain and say, God, give me something to say, man. Give it to me now. Deliver. And he gave me something to say. I got done speaking, and 2 men wanted to talk to me. One was from Wells Fargo, one was from Bank of America. They had people on the plane with them. I was cool with that. But also, I look in the back of the room, and I see this elderly lady locking eyes with me, staring me down. And all of a sudden, she starts making her way up this aisle over here. She takes a hard left, comes up and interrupts this conversation, grabs my arm really tight. I'm like, whoa, what's she going to do? But then she looked me in the eye and said something that only changed that day for me, but changed the entire direction of my life. She looked at me and said, I was questioning if there really is a God. I don't believe in miracles, but you're physical evidence that there's a God, and he does miracles. Thank you. Thank you. So let my arm go, walked away. I look at these 2 men. I've never seen 2 men cry like this in my life. My minister was behind me looking at this. I'm like what's going on? I wasn't putting things together, but all of a sudden, a few seconds later, it came to me. What happened to me on January 15, 2009, it now impacted somebody before she goes to her great beyond, wherever that may be, now believes there's a God who does miracles because I am physical evidence. And that's the moment that sort of spurred me to say, how can I help people who've gone through challenging times? See, I've had the honor and privilege of going to places like Fort Hood in Texas. I went to Oklahoma after those tornadoes. Went to the eastern shore of North Carolina after the Hurricane Sandy. And this last fall, I got the opportunity to go down to Pompano Beach after Hurricane Irma. And I get a chance to talk to people. And one of the things I find out is this. People like me, it's pretty much get taken care of. But often, those people who go through something like this go into a depressed state. But I didn't. And people kept telling me, well, you're going to have depression. You're going to have PTSD. You're going to need therapy. And I kept saying, but I didn't. What's the difference between me and them? And I started thinking all the ways what I was doing, that what was different between me and other folks, whether they were on the plane or during a hurricane or wherever there was. What's the difference? So I started putting these ideas together. Like, how can I help people through their traumatic life experiences? So 4 years ago, get it up here. 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to be interviewed by AARP magazine. Now, candidly, I don't know why AARP wanted to talk to me. I knew nothing about AARP, and candidly, I thought I was too young for it anyway. But they called me and said, it came very apparent when they called me and said, we found out that you helped the American Red Cross raise over $8 million, and we want to know your strategies on how you grew from this thing called a plane crash, while so many other people went into depression or even worse, PTSD. So I agreed to do the interview. And during the interview, they shared this term called PTGS, post-traumatic growth syndrome. PTGS. It's how you grow from a traumatic life event instead of going to a depressed state. See, and what I found out is depression is a state. Depression is a state just like joy or happiness or hope. Depression is a state, and any state you can change just like that. So you can be happy one moment, right, and all of a sudden you're sad or devastated, and you can change it just like that by 1 of 3 ways. First way is through your physiology, the way you move your body. That is the fastest way to change your state, because once you get up and start moving and all these endorphins start changing in your body, your state changes. The second way is through your internal dialogue or the questions you ask yourself. And that's how I managed my state that day as the plane was going into the river. The questions I was asking myself. And the third way is through your power of focus. And that's the most powerful way to manage your state. This is how geniuses and true leaders get into intense focus. That's how they manage their state. See, the questions I was asking myself as the plane was going down, and I still do today, is how can I add even more value and enjoy the process? And enjoying the process is probably the most important part of that. So you can add value all day long and you may not be enjoying it, so you're not happy. How many people every day do you see go to work? They're adding value and they hate their jobs because they're not enjoying the process. So I start figuring out I can grow from a traumatic life experience just by managing my state. But the second thing I realized is something that Tony Robbins taught me and teaches all of his audiences, is that the meaning you attach to something produces the emotion of your life. And emotion is your life. Meaning equals emotion, emotion equals life. Hey folks, you should write this down or memorize this. This is the essence of the true power of meaning. See, meaning informs your emotional state. You can build a ladder of positive, empowering meanings and effectively change the direction of your life. And it all starts with becoming conscious of the meanings you are constantly creating. This technique is called reframing, and it's the most powerful tool you can use to change the meaning of anything in your life. And that's what I call the halftime of your life. When you have to go back to square one, and then you can start creating your own flight plan for your future. I work with an organization in Dallas called Halftime. And their whole focus is those folks who hit that midlife crisis, when their lives become so satiated, they're not growing anymore. And so they work with them these strategies on how to grow out of this funk. And by learning and exploring and all these experiences. Because listen to me, this is one thing that I want you to get out of today. Everybody in this room and who is listening on this today and watching, everybody in this room is going to have a personal plane crash in your life. Something's going to happen, that moment when something's going to happen. And you're going to have to face and make a decision. And that's when growth and change starts to happen. See, things change, such as your relationships. That's when you stop focusing on your own personal significance and how you can add value to other people. Your careers change, where you may be working for a company or organization, and now you start working for maybe a non-for-profit or even an entrepreneur, so you can add value in a different way. And the third way is start growing your worldview. And that's what changed for me most after the plane crash. See, before the plane crash, probably a little bit after, I was pretty focused on myself. I was pretty judgmental. I would judge people pretty quick. But all of a sudden after the plane crash, I started realizing it's like, why am I judging people so quick? I have no basis to judge people. I don't know their backstories. And all of a sudden I started realizing, if I don't know their backstories, how can I judge people? And as soon as I made that shift, I said, how many relationships in my life have I cut off? Because I'm judging people too quickly. As soon as I made that shift, everything started to change in my life. And that's how I got to be with you today. That's why I get to travel the globe now doing what I do. Because I became less judgmental by changing my worldview. And that's what my midlife jolt did for me. See, midlife jolts can either derail us or propel us into reclaiming and remaking our lives instead of becoming devastated and demoralized. As I mentioned before, everybody in this room and everybody who's listening out there will have a personal plane crash moment. And it's up to you whether you choose to grow or you choose to wither. See, the events of January 15th, 2009 were out of my control. But one thing I could control is the way I managed my mind, my state. And the way I did it then and the way I do it now is through my physiology, through my internal dialogue, and through the way I focus. And if you can control that one thing in your life, and it's totally up to you on how you do it, you can choose to grow. You can choose to grow your relationships, your careers, your worldview, and then you'll get a clarity on why you're here. And then, most importantly, then your life will be transformed. I want to say, may God bless you. May God bless the military. But most importantly right now, may God bless the United States of America. Thank you for having me today. Thank you.